Hey there, it's Holly. Today we're talking about something that every single one of us go through, but we often don't talk about. No, it's not a midlife crisis, but it is a rediscovery. I mean, you know the story. You spend your entire life building the career, the family, the obligations, all of those responsibilities. You're burning the candle at both ends because that's what society tells you you're supposed to do. You start losing sight of who you are. And then one day you wake up and you might be in your mid-30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and you don't even know who you are anymore. I recently came across an article in the Harvard Business Review called The Existential Necessity of Midlife Change. And it was written back in 1965 by a Canadian psychoanalyst by the name of Elliot Jacques. And he's the one who coined the term midlife crisis. And what he discovered when he was writing this was midlife crisis is based on three truths: our limitations, our possibilities, and last, our mortality. But here's what's beautiful about it, is Jacques not only wrote about midlife, but he lived it. You see, when he was in his mid-40s, he already had 2 doctorates and he became a psychoanalyst. And he did everything that he was supposed to. But his real life began in his second life between the years of 1965 and 2003. You see, by the time he was 86 years old, he had written 12 books. He had married the love of his life. He had started a consulting firm. He not only consulted with the United States Army, but he also consulted with the Church of England. So you see, he didn't let midlife stop him and it be the end all be all, but that was his bridge between ending one part of his life and starting the next chapter. And you see, the data supports this because the life expectancy now is so much higher than it's been. I mean, people are living well into their 80s and above. So you easily have a solid 25, 30 plus years to live a completely second life, which is so gratifying. So you see, it's not a decline, but it's the opportunity to redefine what you want your life to look like. So the article goes on to say that there are 2 different types of myths out there regarding midlife. The first one is called the myth of decline. Now this started when we hit the year 65 because that's when we retire, being deemed no longer useful. And that happened back in 1916 in Germany. That's when people could essentially collect a pension at 70, but here's the deal. Back in 1916, the average life expectancy of people was 49 years old. So nobody was going to ever be able to collect a pension because they weren't living that long. That was 109 years ago. And in the second myth that's out there is the magical myth of transformation. This is where we have this huge dream and this huge vision that we expect to just wake up one day and then all of a sudden our dream life is going to become a reality. But we know that's not the case. We know that if you want something to happen, you have to be able to face those fears. You have to be able to learn from those failures. You have to consistently show up, even if it feels like it's out of reach. And it's putting those limiting beliefs of I'm too old, I can't do it, I don't have enough money, blah, 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 blah. Putting that on the back burner and not letting them get in the way. So let me ask you, do you see yourself in either one of these myths? Because it's not just a breakdown, it's more of a breakthrough. And it's about leaning into what you want your second life to be like. And it doesn't have to necessarily be at the age of 65 when the expectant's supposed to be. You can start feeling this pull as early as 35, 40 years old. Heck, I was 40 when I started feeling that pull to do something different. And that's when I started to really investigate and lean into it. I mean, your second life could be the most powerful one yet. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you have to quit your job. That might be really extreme. But maybe you might be feeling like, wow, I have lost part of myself here and I don't know what happened. I mean, if you're anything like me, I spent so much time living bonus to bonus. I was working so much that I left myself 0 time to enjoy anything in my life that was an extracurricular. I mean, I went to the point where I bought myself a GT 350 2019 Ford Mustang, beautiful car. It was my dream car. It was the Cobra I always wanted. I wound up selling that car 6 months later because I just didn't give myself any time to drive it. And that was my fault. But I'm not saying you even have to go out and buy your dream car. But what I am asking you to do is, if you're starting to feel this pull that, hey, I'm at the midpoint of what my life could be. Because if the life expectancy is 80 and say you're 40 years old, you have 40 more years of your life to live the best life you can. Maybe it's identifying a hobby you've always wanted. Maybe you're really into woodworking. Maybe you want to pick up golf without guilt. Heck, maybe you want to travel. Lean into that. You know, the other thing for me was I really wanted to be present in the moment with the people that mattered most, because I struggled being able to even take a vacation and be able to disconnect because I was so wrapped up in what was going on in my job that I couldn't let it go. And I had a pretty big wake-up call that happened at the age of 41. I flew back home because my dad was having a stent put in, and I was feeling a lot of like anxiousness and just what I thought was, you know, major anxiety. And it turned out that I was on the verge of having a heart attack at 41. That was the moment that everything changed for me. That was my breakthrough moment where I said, okay, Holly, you've got to do something different here. You are at the mid part of your life, and something has to change. So what is that for you? I wound up changing jobs. I wound up asking myself some really deep questions about, okay, well, what is it that I want this next chapter of my life to look like? But I also realized that I was really the problem. And so I needed to do something different. And here's what I want to leave you with, is that if you're feeling this commonality, okay, where you're feeling empty, you're feeling restless, maybe you're feeling this pull to do something more, that's God pushing you to go through that door. And so don't look at it as like it's a crisis and I need to do something extreme. Look at it again as this is your rediscovery, your midlife rediscovery, that you get to be the person who you want to be in your second chapter of your life. And that chapter can start anytime. So lean into it. With that, I'll see you in my next video. Take care.